Peace. Welcome to Value Talks, the podcast where you dig deep into what truly matters to you. I'm your host, Pat, and in each episode, we'll explore the values that shape who you are, how we live, and the choices that we make. Peace. When you give this thing away, you don't lose it. When you withhold it, you might lose everything. What is it? The answer is care. Today, we're talking about the word care as a value, but not just in a soft, sentimental sense. We're going deep. Care as a value, care as a verb, care as a bridge between what you say matters and how you actually live. I want to start off with two key moments that I really kept in my mind throughout this week. The first moment was Mr. Torain. We all know him as Star. For those of us that watch YouTube, he's an OG radio personality who's raw, controversial, and unapologetic. This man got hit hard with pneumonia. He said he felt like he was gonna check out. If I'm remembering that correctly, and please forgive me if I'm not remembering it correctly, but he wasn't doing too well. Then he gets on the mic, and I listened to the whole episode on YouTube. And one of the questions that he asked, as I guess a subtopic or sub question, was, did a black woman save your life? And this hit different for me because a lot of us know the answer is yes, be it a mother, a nurse, a partner, a friend, a stranger, someone who didn't just feel for us, they acted, they showed up, and that's care. A second moment that happened this past week is the sad news of D'Angelo passing. This is the man that gave us the sounds of Brown Sugar, Voodoo, and Black Messiah. But look at the time between the albums. 5 years, then 14 years. Not because he fell off, but because he gave a damn about the music, the process, the soul. He cared so deeply about his sound, he refused to rush it. He refused to fake it. That's care too. You see, this episode, it's about the kind of care, the care that holds you when you're vulnerable, that kind that protects what you build, the kind that doesn't perform but preserves. See, I always like to set the foundation of our listening house or whatever value topic we're talking about with a definition so that we can thoroughly understand where we are coming from. So, care is intentional attention to something's well being. That could be a person, a project, or your own self. To care is to say, this matters enough for me to stay present with it. Care affirms worth. When you care, you're saying, this has value. This deserves energy. Without care, our values turn hollow, but with care, they breathe. Now, the way we embrace or encounter care through the life stages, they're different. See, in early adult lifehood, you're grinding, you're trying to make something shake. That care might look like mentorship, but sometimes that mentorship can get neglected because you just on that path. So ask yourself, who cared for you when you were building? Have you ever said thank you? And how have you or do you pay it forward? Then you get to that midlife point where there's stress, family, careers, jobs. It's easy to neglect your own body or to stop showing up in relationships. And it begs the question, in this segment of life. Am I caring for the people who depend on me? Am I caring for me? Then we meet our seasoned veterans, the later stages of life. I love to call them legacy. Care becomes about impact, about what you leave behind. To get to this point, this question of the undercurrent has to always be, am I caring for the future? For what I pass down? Now, there's always going to be the seesaw that we experience, where I like to call it the spectrum analysis, where we take a value and we look at the extreme ends of the spectrum and we find a balance. On one end of the spectrum is undercare. You say you care, but you don't show up. You know, the family functions. I'm not saying you got to go chill with family, but if you say you care about something or someone, you can't say one thing and do the other. I believe they call that the false dichotomy, right? I can care, I can hustle, but I can't do both, right? Prioritize, show up where you can, and let the other chips fall where they may, all right? But don't try to say you care and not show up when it's time to show that you care. The other end of the spectrum is overcaring, where you care so much you enable or you control or you deplete yourself. It becomes a slippery slope that if I stop caring, everything will fall apart, and you put yourself at a very in a dangerous space and place, right? Dangerous space and place to yourself, or dangerous space and place to the relationships that you truly care about. So to balance this spectrum out, there has to be intentionality. There has to be responsiveness that is honest, as well as boundaries. So to, you know, understand what and how you feel in the moment and not overcare or undercare, here are some discernment questions or cues that you can utilize. What do I think I know about care? Why do I think that way? Where did I learn how to care? And who modeled healthy versions of caring for me versus distorted versions of care for me? So back to Star and D'Angelo, and just more so deeper personal reflection questions that I was thinking of that I don't mind sharing with you, that I sat with for a while. One of the questions that came up for me is, where in my life, in your case, it would be, where in your life are you withholding care? I did a dramatic pause so that can sizzle in your spirit. I'm not going to give you my response because it actually took me to some interesting places. And we might talk about that at another point in time, but I want to continue with the flow of care. The other deep reflective question that came up during my journal prompt was, where are you overextending care in a way that's harming to you? And that question opened up a more deeper question that I will highlight, and then we'll transition by flipping this coin, which is, when was the last time someone cared for you deeply, and how did you receive it? When we flip the coin, who have you cared for recently, not out of guilt, not out of obligation, but because you were aligned? And how did that turn out? See, the reason why I bring up D'Angelo is because his craft should challenge us. Are we rushing things that deserves our patience? And then stars, recovery check. Are you acknowledging the care that saved you? I'm sorry I paused for a moment there because most of these things regarding care that came up for me in my mind, of course, had to do with my dad who's no longer here. Especially that last one that I shared with you. Are you acknowledging the care that saved you? You see, we do things, and sometimes we don't even know why we're doing it because it's the heat of the moment, or it could be vice versa. Somebody else is doing things and they just keep showing up. They don't even know why they're showing up anymore, but it's just that I love you. And shout out to my dad for caring the way he knew best. Right. So here's some practical takeaways I want to share with you that you can use as action steps um, in this moment of care. And if you value care, make a care map. You can do 3 people, you can do 1 project, or you can do 1 self practice. Who or what are you actively caring for this week? Map it out and see how much progress you make at the ending of this week. Then, for those of you who want something a little bit different, you can set a boundary. Define what sustainable care looks like, not performative, and one that is not going to deplete you. Right. Um, and then there are those who are on the receiving end. Practice receiving care. Let someone help you this week without flinching. It can be as simple as a praise or a compliment, and receive that. You can just say, I received that and I thank you. Right. And then for those who want to acknowledge those who have cared for you, acknowledge those caregivers. Text them, tell them. You can even sit. For those who have caregivers that have transitioned on, you can sit, close your eyes, think about them, say a few words of upliftment, of praise and thanks to them. But all in all, don't let that gratitude in you sit in silence. So, as we start to close up shop here, I want to let you know that care is not weak. It's not soft. It's sacred. When you care well, you create space for healing, for growth, for legacy. When you withhold care, you risk losing connection to the very thing that makes life worth living. So today, ask yourself, where is care missing in my life? Where is it misplaced? Where is it ready to come alive again? Because when you give care away, you don't lose it. You multiply what and who matters. Peace.